Right, so today's session will be about 1 hour long. I'm going to speak, and my name is Rebecca Mercado. I'm the show director for the Buyer's Market of American Craft. I also work as an exhibits manager with the Premier Jewelers and the business suppliers and jewelry suppliers. I'm going to speak a little bit about the Exhibitor kit and some important rules for setup and breakdown. And then Bruce will talk about booth display from the buyer's perspective and keeping a professional presence throughout your display and your branding, making that cohesive. And Stacy will talk about setup tips and important things to remember and to bring with you to the show for efficient setup and breakdown. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end, but please hold your questions till I tell you to start sending in your questions, which you can do with the chat feature at the bottom of the little control panel that you have. Okay, so the booth package. Your booth package includes it's a pretty bare bones structure. The reason we do that is because all of our artists have their own take on how they want to present their work. It's not really we try and make the booth display, the booth package, as one size fits all as possible. So a glass person is going to use that space very differently than someone making fiber or jewelry. And since everybody is going to change it anyway, we have it stripped down to the bare bones of what you need, and then you can customize that. And we encourage you to customize that as much as possible to create your own world in that 10 by 10 space that is an extension of your aesthetic. So what does your booth fee get you? Pipe and drape on the back and the walls of your booth. If you have a corner, it's 2 walls. If it's an inline, it's 3. The drape is gray, silvery gray fabric. It's 8 feet high. The pipe is metal pipe that's on stanchions and then around the upper perimeter of your booth. The front of your booth will not include a crossbar, but those are included in your booth package. They're just not set up at the time you arrive. Each exhibitor is entitled to 2 extra crossbars, which will be picked up at the decorator's, the contractor's exhibitor service desk, which is located at the back of the floor when you arrive in the show floor. Every booth includes a sign, an ID sign, which has company name, city, state, and booth number. That is purely for ID purposes only. You should definitely be customizing your own signage, which Bruce and Stacy will talk about later. And you get 1 chair. Having another chair is great. It's nice to offer buyers a place to sit so that they can rest their feet for a minute and linger in your booth. But you have 1 chair. We encourage you not to sit as much as you can, because standing and being approachable it helps invite people into your booth so that you look like you're not, if you look too busy, then people don't want to interrupt on a subconscious level. They don't want to interrupt you. So stand when sit when you need to for a break, but stay standing as much as possible. Your booth package also includes drayage. Drayage is the labor it takes to get your shipment from the loading dock to your booth, and then the empties put away in storage, then the empties brought back to you at the end of the show, and then once you've packed up, your packages sent back out on their way to the next show or back to your house. That is often known in the exhibits industry world as the most expensive way to move your stuff the shortest distance. But we are very lucky to have a good relationship with our decorator and contractor that's worked into your booth fee. So if you ship in advance to the warehouse, the decorator's name is Hargrove. If you ship to Hargrove's warehouse, a few weeks before the show, it will be brought to your booth before you arrive, and it makes things very smooth and efficient, and that is at no extra cost to you. Small packages, it's important to know that small packages, there is a fee for that. If you ship using UPS or FedEx direct to the convention center, there is a fee associated with that. It's about $15 per item coming and going. But there is also a business center with a FedEx in the convention center, and I believe they charge us a nominal fee for holding your package, but you'd have to compare the cost to see what works best for you. You are allowed storage of 2 empty boxes, and they can be nested. So as long as Hargrove sees 2 boxes, they don't care if it has 15 empty boxes, smaller boxes inside of it. But you get 2 stickers to store 2 crates or boxes. And they cannot be stored inside your booth. Your empty boxes and crates, if they're part of your display, that's one thing, but they don't want a lot of paper sitting around behind your display or in your display that's a fire hazard. And we also provide you with promotional brochures and stickers for the show. You should definitely be making use of them. They're beautifully designed with images of the show, registration information. Our exhibitors use those stickers with the show dates all year round when they're mailing their orders out. You can also just slap them on the back of your own postcards for your own mailings. And because promoting the show is a collaborative effort between show management and our exhibitors, you putting even 20 or 30 of those out in the mail helps you as well as all your other exhibitors. And they, the same, what goes around comes around. Same thing works for you. So if you're new, you don't have a large list, create a wish list of stores you want to have your work in, send them out, and somebody who's more established at the show is doing the same and sending out to their list. So that also benefits you in return. And of course, you get a listing in the show guide. Some important extras that are not included in your booth fee. Flooring is not included. You are required to cover your floor in one way or another, but you can bring that if you want. A lot of exhibitors use interlocking foam tiles or just a rug from IKEA. You can also rent carpet if you are traveling across country by plane or something. It's probably just worth the it's worth cutting out the hassle of that by renting a carpet from the decorator. Electricity is also required, and you do have to pay for that through Hargrove, even if you don't use electricity, but there shouldn't be anybody in the show who's not using electricity. You absolutely need to have lighting in your booth, or you'll look like a black hole compared to a beautiful celestial body around you. Everybody will have bright lights, and yours will be very noticeable as in a negative way, that it won't be attracting buyers. And the minimum is 1,000 watts, which should be plenty for most exhibitors in a 10 by 10. And it runs about, we're still finalizing the pricing with the decorator, but it runs about $180 to $200 for the whole show. Of course, your display materials, what you put inside of your 10 by 10 space, or 10 by 15, whichever size you have, that's your responsibility. And then the lighting and bulbs and hardware, you'd have to bring or rent. If you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself the first time, you can have electricians set that up for you, but it's really not too complicated. You use the crossbars that are available to you, and then you just have a track light that you can purchase from the hardware store and rig it right up there. And Stacy and Bruce will talk a little bit more about that later. Just a reminder that flooring is really important. Not only does it, polish, make your display more polished and thorough, but it's also a health concern. You really do, when you don't want to stand on that hard concrete all day. It's really bad for your feet, bad for your back, and buyers will probably, they have the same concerns because they're walking around that convention center all day. So it's a good way to go. Also, the convention floor bare is not attractive, so covering it with flooring that follows your design is just a really nice way to finish off your booth. The exhibitor kit has a lot of paper in it. It can be intimidating at first, but there's really only a few pages that most people need. The general info has, what your move-in times are, how to find the loading dock, basic rules. It has all of your order forms. If you are driving in all of your display or shipping your display, you won't need a lot of those. Some people starting out do rent a table and then drape the table with their own fabric or customize it in some way. So you can rent that from the decorator. They have virtually anything you need. Fine jewelers, especially people working in gold, do tend to rent cases. They have lights already in them. They come with a key that you lock it, and then you're finished with your display really easily. You want to make sure you weigh out the costs of that, because sometimes bringing your display can be more cost effective than renting, but factor in the convenience, of course. Shipping it a long distance, it might be just worth it for you to rent it before investing in building your own display. Electricity is one of the required things that you do need to fill out, as I mentioned before. And then there's information on where to ship and when. Things have to arrive at a specific location and time for your advanced shipment versus shipping directly to the convention center. It can't show up early to the convention center. Nobody will be there to accept it. And then there's a recap form and the credit authorization form. Those three things, electricity, the recap form, and the credit authorization form, have to be filled out by every exhibitor. Okay, and then there is a section of forms that are buyer's market specific. These are not from the decorator, they're directly from us. But they are bundled with your forms that you'll get from Hargrove. That's all emailed to you around December 15th or 16th. So you'll get all those forms at the same time. The guest forms, your badges, exhibitor badges, are mailed to you physically a few weeks before the show. Your guests and assistants are not. You have to fill that info out and fax it in so that we know to have those ready, and they'll be picked up at registration when you arrive. Booth assistants, we do have temps that are available for hire if you need help, not during setup and move out, but just during the show if you need some sales assistance or somebody to watch the booth and give you a break for a while. We do offer a postcard mailing, and that is a great way if you are new to wholesaling to get your product out there before the show. The pre-show marketing webinar that's happening December 12th with Megan Aumann, we'll talk about that in more detail. And then the one required form of that bunch is the emergency contact, so that we know how to get a hold of you if, heaven forbid, something happens. Or if you show up late, weather might be an issue. We want to make sure we can get a hold of you. And then there's just some important guidelines on setting up your electrical. Make sure you have everything packed well, and then an exhibitor manual with all the names, numbers, locations, things like that that you need to reference before and during the show. Getting your stuff there, we talked about. You have a couple options. You can use, you can ship it, whether that's FedEx, UPS. Art in Motion is Art in Motion is an independent freight company that specializes in art. Hargrove is also a shipper, so you can ship with them. It really pays to shop around, so make sure you compare. It doesn't make any sense, but different locations, same locations, different services, the numbers vary very greatly. You can drive your own stuff to the show and unload it yourself. You have a specific loading time for that, which is on your booth confirmation. You can hand carry things in yourself if you don't have a lot of stuff. And you can also pay valet from if you drive to the show but you aren't able or don't want to unload it yourself, you can pay labor to unload it and bring it to your booth for you. And just some quick rules with setup. Power tools are not allowed. Your booth display should basically come together with a screwdriver or a staple gun or hooks and zip ties, things like that. You're not allowed to use saws, heavy equipment, anything like that. Hammer and nail, you're probably not getting in trouble for that. Screwdriver, that's fine. So basic hand tools. Since we're a professional show, we are a wholesale show to the trade only. As much as we love kids, we do not allow them on the floor during show hours or during move-in. The age restrictions are 12 and under are not allowed during the show hours, and 16, younger than 12 not allowed during the show. Younger than 16 not allowed during move-in and move-out. That is for their protection and for safety of products and safety of everybody involved. But we are very rare in that the buyer's market offers a daycare service on site. It's called Camp Buyer's Market, and there is a form for that is in your exhibitor's kit. They're a fantastic group of ladies. We've used them forever, and exhibitors love them. Just a quick word on insurance. Your contract stipulates that you should have insurance coverage, and it's sadly something that a lot of exhibitors overlook. We don't enforce it. We don't check that you have insurance, but we certainly hope that you do. Case in point, we had a horrible incident at a previous show where an exhibitor was breaking down and they tipped over their neighbor's booth. The 30 minutes after show close are the most chaotic because everybody's ready to go home. Everybody's packing things up so quickly, and accidents are bound to happen. And this exhibitor tipped over somebody else's and destroyed $20,000 or so of one-of-a-kind glass art. And it's a horrible thing because it's just an accident, but all those pieces were sold and ready to be delivered, and you don't want to find yourself on either end of that situation. So please speak with your homeowner's insurance, your car rental insurance, even your credit cards sometimes provide some coverage, and see where you need extra coverage. There are companies that provide specific riders for events. And now I'm going to turn this over to Bruce, and just give me 1 second.
Hi. Thank you, Rebecca. It's a pleasure to be here with you in this webinar today. I'm going to be talking about some of the aspects of booth design for the buyers. I would tell you the first thing to do is make the shopping experience as seamless as possible. It's very hard work for a buyer to go to a show and spend 2 or 3 days shopping, walking, standing, being up later than normal. And the more seamless that you can make that shopping experience, and by that I mean the less work for them, so that they don't have to stoop over, bend, stand on uncomfortable flooring, or strain to see something that you have on display, the better your sales will be and the better their experience will be. One of the first things I'd like to say about booth design is booth design, as I go around and work around the country, I'll often say to someone, why did you do this? And usually the answer to that is, well, I have a friend and that's the way she or he does it. And I'm here to tell you that many booth and visual merchandising decisions are propagations of errors. Take a close look at how you're displaying your work and making sure that it works not only for you as the seller, but also for your customers. When you are really creating sound and solid visual merchandising techniques, you'll find that you bring more people into your booth, and it certainly will result in more sales. When it comes to booth design, the first rule of merchandising is that the merchandise must match the merchandising, and the merchandising must match the merchandise. And if you've got contemporary products to take them to a show like the Buyer's Market and display them on Sam's Unpainted Furniture, it doesn't fool anyone. So if your work is contemporary, your booth needs to be contemporary. If your work is folk art, your booth needs to match that. And right on down the line, merchandising and merchandise must match. And I guess the next big topic is what brings people into your booth. This is what often people ask me, what brings people into a booth. And over the years, I've cited 4 things, but I've recently added a new one. So when we get to the 4th one, I'll tell you what the new one is. First and foremost, what brings people into a display is multiple levels. In display, we tend to be addicted to the tabletop height, but a table in reality is meant to sit at, and your customers are standing, and the difference between standing and sitting at eye level is about 10 inches. So think in terms of getting your work up a little higher, off of tabletop height, essentially from your customer's belt buckle to about 6 inches over their head is the sweet spot. And make sure that you've got as much merchandise on display in that belt buckle height to about 6 inches over their head as possible. That's the first thing that brings people in. Second thing that brings people in is large format photography. It can be product photography for a wholesale show, but I'm seeing more and more people switch over to lifestyle images. So instead of it just being a picture of your work like you would have an image that you would be sending to a jury to get into a show, if it's a wearable, it might be on a model. If it is a product for home decor, it would be in an appropriate environment. So the lifestyle images really tell your customers a lot about what it is that you have to sell, and it also is another good way to build a brand. The third thing that brings people in is effective use of the corner. And when you use your corners, the next time you go to a show, look at how few people use their corners effectively. In a corner, you've got 2 planes coming together, and the human eye is naturally drawn there. So use your corners effectively. It's a good place to put yourself. It's a great place to put a large format photography of your work. It's also a great place to build a nice pyramid of a display, or if you have large pieces, put them in the corner so they're really filling the space and having that focal attention being pulled to them. The 4th piece is actually should have been probably the first one, and that is compelling work. If your work is not impressive, when people walk by and they look at the products you make, if the art is not impressive, chances are they won't be drawn in. So when you make impressive art, you will find that you have more customers for it, because ultimately people buy art to impress other people. You'll find it increases your reorder situation, and it will pull more people into the booth when what they're looking at is impressive. And the 5th one, the new one that I just recently added, and I've noticed over the years, what draws people into a booth probably more than any other thing is other people. Customers hesitate to go into a booth where there's no one in that booth. And if there's a lot of people in the booth, customers will fight their way in to see what is going on. So the more people you can create in your booth, the more of a sort of feeding frenzy or high energy projection you will create. And people really do have a lot to do with bringing people in. Having said that, one thing that you really want to avoid at the show is having 2 sales associates, you and a helper, a husband and wife team, both standing around in a booth with no customers in there. When that happens, one of you really needs to go away so that you're not being intimidating to your customers. I call that being a gargoyle to your business when you've got more sales associates than you do have customers being visible. So those are the 5 things that pull people into a booth, and I would say the next thing that's very important is effectively using those walls. You go to so many shows, and unless the people have 2-dimensional art, there's nothing on the walls. Example of that I see all the time is jewelers. One of the best places to display necklaces and earrings are on what would be wall cases or wall displays. Wall cases get noticed. It's right there at eye level. It makes it very easy for someone to see something, and if it's a wholesale show where you don't have to worry about the theft, I mean, obviously I'm not talking about high-carat gold and diamonds, but if it's, you know, sort of costume jewelry or a work that is more commercial, it's totally appropriate to have it out on the walls where people can touch it and it entices them to try it on. So the next topic I want to address is the trade show signage. Rebecca mentioned that you are given a sign at trade shows, and the one thing that you need to do more than anything else is to make sure that your trade show signage builds a brand, that it all comes together so that when they see your order form, when they see your business card, when they see your trade sign, it is all a consistent logo and branded business. That is the way that you get people to remember you, because many times people will see you at a show one time and then they'll come and they'll see you again. More often than not, it is that logo, your trade sign, the brand that they remember. And if you don't have that consistency, you don't get that connection, because many buyers will not buy the first time they see you. They just, they'll come in, they'll see you at a show, they'll compliment you on your work, they'll ask for a catalog, and they'll walk. And it might take 2 or 3 times for them to actually be ready to place that order. But along with consistency of the trade show signage, you want to make sure that that also matches your product line and matches your merchandise, and have a good name for your business that makes sense, because I'm finding so many people have names of businesses that are just conjure up really strange images. Like recently I encountered a business and the name of the business was Splinters and Cuts, and it was a woodworking business, but the image that it conjures up is bloody Band-Aids. So you want to make sure that your trade show and sign and your business name work consistently together, and then always, always, always display your booth number. That is customers, especially wholesale customers, pet peeve when they can't find you. There's a directory there, it has a booth number in the directory, and they're looking for you because they've heard of you or they bought your work earlier and they're trying to find you. And I'm telling you, so many of the shows I go to, there's no booth numbers, and it just makes everybody crazy. So be sure and display the booth number loud and clear in your booth so your customers can find you if they're finding you in a directory and wanting to find you on the show floor. Another thing I'd like to address is booth openings. Make sure that you don't neck your booth down. The opening of your booth on an inline has to be a minimum of 6 feet. If you close it up more than 6 feet, you've essentially sent the message that your booth is the private space when everybody else's booth is a public space. Make sure also that your shelf depths are not too deep. I find that many people at shows use too wide of tables or too wide of displays. When you use really wide displays, it creates a barricade between you and your customers. You're best when you're selling your work to a customer when you can create that intimate selling space, which is about 22 to 24 inches apart. And if your table's 30 inches wide, what you will find is it keeps you from ever establishing that intimate selling space with your customers. Excuse me. Make sure that your shelf depths are not too deep also, because deep shelves tend to have too much product in there, and when the shelves get deep, it thwarts the touch. When you merchandise for the show, the number one thing that you can do is merchandise for high touch if you want to increase sales. A customer is 4 times more likely to buy something from you that they've touched over something they have not. If you make your shelves too deep and you pile work up vertically, horizontally, people tend not to touch because they're afraid they'll knock something over or break something in the process of touching it. So get things up there, make it easy for people to touch, and you will see you pull more people in your booth and your sales will increase. If you want to use the best method to getting people to touch something, hang it. Hanging is quite often the easiest way to display something, but it's often the most frequently avoided merchandising method. When you hang something like mugs or scarves or necklaces, they just automatically say, touch me, and people do. And always keep that touch response very high in your booth. I want to reiterate a little bit about Rebecca said. I cannot overestimate the importance of flooring. So many people go to shows and they see the flooring as an afterthought. There's two reasons for the flooring. One is it finishes and defines the space. Without the flooring, the floor is sort of ugly and hard. The other reason for flooring is it makes it comfortable for both you and your customers. Essentially, walking is easier than standing, and you'll find that people that have been on their feet all day, they will leave a booth before their attention span has even has expired, because their legs are telling them keep moving, keep moving. So if you give people a soft place to land, a comfortable floor covering that looks nice, you will find they hang around longer, and that only pulls more people in. The longer a customer hangs around, the more likely they are to ask questions, and the more likely they are to buy something. I have a little bit of dialogue that I'd like to talk about lighting before my time is up. I see here that I've got a few more minutes. Lighting, the main thing that you want to do is have it. Any light is better than no light at all, but not all lighting is created equally. If your work is shiny, contemporary, jewel-like, glass, vitreous enamel, sparkly, metallic, anodized, you need light in your booth, because without that light, you are just losing all that sparkle and razzle-dazzle from your glass, from your jewelry. And essentially, if people can't see it, they will not buy it. There are many different considerations when it comes to lighting. First of all, is it flexible and modular? And when it comes to the fixture is not really that important. What is important is the bulbs. Appropriate lighting for trade show and store merchandising are floodlights and spotlights. A floodlight has a mirror on the inside of the bulb, and that mirror reflects that light energy, shoots it out of that fixture, and puts the light on your work where it needs to be. Track lighting is best because it's modular, but there's certainly many other, clip-on lights, if they're attractive and you don't have a lot of extension cords and stuff hanging down, clip-on lights can work fine. So the fixture isn't as important as the bulb. If you're going to use track light, make sure that you're getting a track light that was meant to be set up, broken down, and moved around. And by that I mean, if you go to Home Depot, the kind of track light you will get there is meant to be installed in a home and never disconnected and moved from one show to the other. And the business of show merchandising is a very nomadic lifestyle. They'll be setting up and breaking this down all the time. If it's not meant for that kind of use, it won't hold up very long. You'll get to a show and you won't have continuity in your track, and therefore you won't be able to use your lights. The quality of the light is important as well. If your work, as I said, is bright and sparkly and contemporary, halogen is the most affordable method the most affordable bulb choice that you can use to get that razzle, dazzle, and sparkle. We're on the dawning of LED lighting. LED lighting the bulbs are very expensive, but you have to consider the bulb life is almost human lifespan. So if you get LED lighting for your booth, you will probably never ever have to change your lights again, because they will last longer than your life of doing shows. It creates low heat, low energy, bright white light. So LED the prices are coming down. That is the wave of the future, but halogen is good. You can use incandescent bulbs. They create a lot of heat, and they generally create a pinkness or a yellowness to the quality of light, which is why many people prefer the halogen. And compact fluorescents, from my point of view, are virtually worthless for merchandising. They don't have that bright sparkle, that shine. It's not a directed light that really makes it very clear and easy to view merchandise. Beyond the types of light and the fixtures that we've already talked about, there's another issue, and that is light placement. Where do you put the lights? Many people put the lights on one side of their booth, shining across to illuminate the work on the other side, or a lot of people put their lights across the front rail, having it shine into the booth. Well, that looks great when you're standing outside the booth, but as soon as you as a customer walk in, now the light is on your back, and you are casting a shadow on the work. So ultimately, the general rule is when a customer is standing, looking at a display, looking at a piece of art, if the light is over the customer's head and shining on that art, it's in the right place. So as much as you can achieve that, the better it is, keeping in mind, once again, when a person is standing looking at a piece of art, if the light is over their head, shining on the product, that is where it should be. So that covers the issues that we have about lighting. Let me just look at my note here and see if there's anything on the next page. I think that that pretty much wraps it up in terms of just a general close here for me, and I know we're going to be back for questions. The main thing to do is realize that the booth is a lot of work. Once you do the work, you only have to do it once for the life of that booth. What I find many people do is they're working on their product line, which you definitely need, but they wait too long, too late to start working on that booth to be ready for a trade show. Now is the time to start and just dedicate a little bit of time each week to bring that trade show up to speed so that when it comes time for the show, you're not being stressed out and having it all drive you crazy, because so many times people settle at the end. They say, why did you do this? Well, I ran out of time. Or why don't you have a floor covering? Well, I didn't have time to get one. So right now is the time. As soon as you get to January, make sure that you've got a punch list that is in order, so you know what you need, you know what you need to do, so when it comes close to show time, that isn't an additional stress that you have to keep you from arriving at the show well rested and ready to do the hard work at hand.
Great, thank you.
Through, Rebecca, and show some of those.
Yep, I'm going to do that right now. Thank you so much, Bruce.
You bet.
Okay, so going back, this is not a picture of a booth, obviously, but just an example of how lighting can create drama and a mood. So, color choice and the type of, the direction of the lighting can help. They should be, appropriate to what you make. Lighting can change the color of your work, so you want to make sure that you've tested that, especially fiber dyes are reactive to various types of light. Something that's black may look brown or red under certain lighting and so forth. Just to stress again that large format photography is very important, especially for jewelers or people making small work. It makes sure that buyers can identify what you do from across the aisle. If they see it from a distance, it will help lure them in. Also, I don't have to tell you that, looking at jewelry, we have a large jewelry section, and it can be very tedious and repetitive to look at very close-up, detail-oriented work over and over again. So this helps bring attention to your booth, and then they'll come in for a closer look. Price tags are very important. You want to make sure that your work is clearly marked, and they should be marked in wholesale prices. Do not come to the show with your work priced retail. It will drive buyers crazy, and if you expect them to do the math, they won't. There should be no question about what the price of each piece is, and you want to do that beforehand, because very often I'll see exhibitors, on the floor surrounded by work and pieces of papers and stickies and markers, and they're just pulling out their hair trying to get everything priced right before the show. So definitely do that in advance. If you have a separate hang tag, that is a nice selling feature to stores, that they can use that. It has details about the care of the product, how the product was made, or a story behind the design. You want to make sure not to have your website on there, or sometimes keep your branding entirely separate from it altogether, because some stores do not promote the individual artist, or they might in a different way, and they want that option. So rather than print something that you won't get use out of, do it in a way that you can customize it for the use, or have it as a separate hang tag altogether. and I will turn everything over to Stacy, who's going to give us a little more insight on how this works for exhibitors. Stacy?
Hi, everybody. Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi there, and I'm Stacy Simbrom. I've been doing shows with Rosen for about 15 years now and been in the business for 20 years. So that's where the experience I'm going to share with you comes from. Do's and don'ts. First thing that you should absolutely do is the wholesale show, and don't doubt yourself because you can really, really pull this off. I go through my questions every time I do a show, and I've been doing them a long time. You'll become exasperated, you'll be very, very nervous, but you will in fact survive and be better for it. So enjoy the process. It's one that I have for 20 years. What I want to say, first of all, is that anybody that is making the transition from retail shows into wholesale shows, please don't try to contrast and compare them. Your experiences and the way that you're going to show your product and the type of work that you're going to do is so different on so many different levels. When you bring things to a retail show, oftentimes you're showing volume. At a wholesale show, you're showing your artwork and why it's special and how it reflects what people want in their home, what people want in their life. So even though you may make an earring and you may have it in 12 different colors, you don't necessarily have to put out the same earring in 12 different colors. Or if you sell lamp poles, and again, they're with beads, and the basic structure of the lamp pole is different, but you sell it in 12 different colors. You don't necessarily have to put out 12 different poles. And the presentation in a wholesale show, the best way that I can go about when I go to create my booth is when I have my product out, and whether it be in my head or on the table, what type of store, gallery, business environment do I want my work to be in? And that is the type of feeling that I reflect in my creation of my booth. So those are some of the basic thoughts that I'd like to start off with. As Rebecca said, when you walk into the trade show floor for the first time, you're going to be met by a 10 by 10 by 8 space. Gray poles, gray draperies, cement floors, big black honkin' boxes that you're going to plug your extension cords into, lots of people running back and forth frantically. Try not to get too nervous. Somehow, the first day of the show, it all comes together much like a Broadway show. Crappy dress rehearsal and fabulous opening night. What I want to start, when you are designing your booth, you've created your work. Bruce used a very important word, and I believe that Rebecca did too, and it goes back to all of us in high school and college and advertising class. And the word is called branding. And that word carries from the work that you're going to be selling, to the way that you are dressed, to the business material printed that you'll be bringing onto the show floor and giving to consumers, to the colors that you use in all of this. So the first thing when you are designing your booth that I would like you to consider is, what colors do you feel work the best with your particular artwork? Try to pick no more than 2 or 3 colors. Any more than that and your booth starts becoming more important looking than your actual work does. Remember that your booth is just supposed to show off your work. Your booth is not supposed to win any awards per se for being a fabulous booth and not selling any of the work in it. So try to keep that thought very much current in your head. The booth parts, again, are the walls, and walls can either be soft, which are draperies, or hard, which is usually sometimes a Velcro or a felt-covered wall. Your displays, which will be tables and shelving units, the lighting, which Bruce spoke of, and the flooring. You can either rent the carpet, bring the carpet. I have come to realize that the foam tiles work best for me because I have back problems, and the regular floors without the padding under them, even just the regular carpetings without padding under them, still don't give me enough support for my back that I feel comfortable after spending 8 hours on my feet. And a lot of my customers also walk into a booth from walking down and up the aisles, which are just the carpet, and they'll walk in and hit the foam, and you'll see them physically exhale and spend a few seconds there just becoming somewhat comforted by the fact that for a few moments their feet are not aching quite as much. So I suggest the foam tiles, and they're light and easy to pack, which is always a great thing. Also, when you are constructing a booth, easier is better. Don't over-construct. We're not building the ark. And pre-construct as much as possible. My booth is done with shelving that I zip tie together. Everything is pre-built. Everything is pre-measured. I pretty much know where all my product goes on each shelf, and it packs well into my car. I can zip it together, and then I can spend the majority of my time on the really important things, which is displaying my product in the best manner and doing my lighting. Everything else, hopefully by the time you're ready to unpack the car and put up your shelving, that's going to be a no-brainer for you. It's going to go up easy. I strongly suggest, I know you'll be doing the Rosen show this time around. Different shows have different practices with the people who handle the electricity and the different types of labor unions. A lot of times they will give you a hard time for using tools on the floor, and they will tell you that they would prefer, and in sometimes they don't prefer it, they require it, that you use unions. That's why I have come to realize that the zip tie method for my booth is great, because it's no tools, and I just cut it with either scissors or snips when I'm tearing down. So for me, it's the most cost effective because I don't have to worry about unions and paying money that I don't have to set up the booth. So I strongly, strongly suggest that. Also, when I go to design my booth, I also design it in with storage spaces. Just because you get a 10 by 10, it doesn't always mean that you have to use all of your 10 by 10 by 8 for merchandising your product. You may not have enough product, or that just may be too much space for you. So what I've come to do is I merchandise in a 10 by 8 space. So I use the length and I use the width of my booth completely, but I don't go back into my booth the 10 feet. I snake it up by 2 feet. So my merchandising space is 10 feet across by 80 feet in depth. Then I separate it with a curtained wall, and I have a 2-foot by 10-foot storage space in the back that I can keep all of my backup paperwork off the floor, so my floor looks really clean with just product. I keep since I bring my product in, I don't use I use plastic storage bins rather than cardboard. So I can stack all of those things away from the sales floor, so people have no idea that all of that chaos even exists within the world of Angels with Attitudes. So, and I highly recommend that. It also makes the move out easier for me because my things are all there. So when 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock on a trade show floor is called the last day, you can just start systematically breaking down and doing it in an organized manner. And you can put a lot of your paperwork away ahead of time and keep it organized and not get it lost. So that is the way that I have designed my booth. And also, if you can pre-merchandise that display center that you're creating. So if you can set it up and see where your product things go to the best of your ability, that way when you get onto the set, when you get onto the floor, when you're setting up your first trade show, you can put up your booth with hopefully as little chaos as possible. Put out your merchandise in the way that you had planned it when you set up your booth before you had gotten to the trade show. Put up your lighting, and then you can spend your time tweaking and perfecting your presentation rather than to doing it off the cuff. And you'll be far more relaxed, and you'll be breathing a lot more, which is a perfect beginning to being an exhibitor at any show. What I'd like to talk about next is, let's see, the extra things you will need in your toolbox. Really important. There are stores in the area. When you're at the exhibiting center, there is an IKEA and a Home Depot within driving distance, but in walking distance there is a Kmart, a CVS, a Staples, and a Burlington Coat Factory. The Burlington Coat Factory does have tablecloths, drapes, small bathroom tables, so that's like quick last-minute things, as does the Kmart. So you do have those last-minute places that you can run to if you've forgotten something while you've been packing, or if something goes wrong once you get there and you need to fill in your things. But the best toolbox should have Scotch tape and duct tape, really important. A pair of scissors and a pair of snips, very important. Zip ties, God's best invention, are wonderful things. I find that the 8-inch work well for everything because you can either cut them down if you need them smaller. If you need them larger, you can link them together. It's a good basic size. And floral wire, because it's really, really thin. It's very, very strong. And in case of emergency, it's just a good backup thing to have. Straight pins and diaper pins, which you can buy at the dollar store, because diaper pins, believe it or not, you can house a couple of extension cords if they're unruly. Just put them inside the diaper pin and it will make them a little less chaotic. So I use the diaper pins. I always use straight pins. A step ladder. Please bring a step ladder. Everybody uses the chairs and all, but the chairs are not high enough in a lot of cases to do the lighting with, especially for women. So please remember to bring a step ladder. They do sell them at Kmart, but usually halfway through setup, they're gone because people have been setting up their Christmas decorations, taking down their Christmas decorations, putting up their trade show booths, and we all run and just eat them up from Kmart. Basic cleaning supplies, please bring, if you have anything glass, please bring glass cleaner and paper towels. If you have anything that's been packed away that you think that sawdust might be collecting on, just bring things to straighten up your displays. Your displays should always look as good as the stores you want to sell your merchandise in. And extra light bulbs. Guys, they sell out. All the area stores sell out in light bulbs. And during the setup day, you don't want to be putting up your lights and have everything wonderful and then find that you've blown a bulb. You're always better to bring extra bulbs. You will eventually use them. If you don't use them, believe me, it is a wonderful investment to have. Really important. Rebecca, would you mind tooling through some of the slides at this point? Wonderful. This first one, this one that says don't, it's not that it's a bad display. What I think is when I looked at it for the first time, this is often what I see when I go and speak to a new exhibitor that's going from the retail market into the wholesale market, and they felt that their retail booth would be fine at the wholesale show. There's too much merchandise. I'm sure if we were looking at this booth that there's a lot of overlap and there's just a lot of chaos. As a buyer, it might be too scary to approach. So I would tend to go for a cleaner, more consolidated approach to merchandising and a slicker approach. Those white wire shelves, although are very, very useful, perfect. Look at the difference between the white wire shelves and these really nice slick walls. These walls are hard walls. I had told you that the walls in a booth could either be hard or soft. This is a perfect example of hard walls. Next one, please. Thank you. This was Bruce's example of the large photography and also his example of hanging your work. Please utilize all your space. It also provides a really clear area so the shopper can talk to the exhibitor and you can work up a relationship. They're not going to buy from you if you're not part of the experience. So please be part of your experience. This enables you to be approachable so that you can present your work. Next slide, please. Don't be modest. If you've won awards during different things, if you are lucky enough to enter the niche awards and are winning a niche award, make sure you put that hunker out. That is big time. You should be proud of yourself, and people will be proud for you, and you should definitely utilize that fame in making your work more attractive and more sellable. One more, please. Look the part, then smile. Please, you are selling to higher-end galleries and stores. Please do not wear blue jeans. If you're a gentleman, wear chinos, wear nicer slacks. If you're a woman, please be stylish. This is not the place for blue jeans or looking like you're about to head up to the shop. Please make sure you're slick, because the people who will be walking the show are slick and they want to see the complete presentation of how you reflect your work and your booth reflect you. They're buying the experience because when your work goes back to their gallery, they're going to be selling it based on the experience that you presented them. They want to buy work from an artist who is a professional in the field. One more, please, Rebecca. Looking at good paper. Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase with this, and this has to do with your print paperwork that you're going to be bringing. Again, I'm going to bring that branding word back into the conversation. Please utilize the colors that you choose for your booth in your paperwork. It should carry through. The ideal situation is when a buyer goes back, if they see the colors, let's say purple, and for a long time my booth was purple and gold and a saffron orange. I wanted them to, in somewhere in their brain, I wanted that to be a trigger for them of, oh, angels with attitudes. That reminds me, I'm running low on Stacy Simbrom stuff. Or by the same respect, when I called my client and I said, hi, this is Stacy with Angels with Attitude, I wanted them to be able to, I was in the purple booth with the orange. Oh, yes. So it gives a point where you can begin your discussion, which is very important. You will need business cards. You will need a price sheet, purchase orders, and a postcard. Thank you, Rebecca. The signage Bruce and Rebecca already spoke about, so I'm going to lay low on those and pick up some of the other pieces here. Business cards. I have a regular business card, but I also use my postcards as a business card, especially after
Hi everyone. We're having a little technical difficulty with Stacy's audio. We'll try and get her connected real quick. Although we're coming up on our 3 o'clock on our hour deadline.
Hello?
So, hi.
Am I there?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We have we're coming up to our deadline, so if you want to wrap up real quick, and then we'll take a quick, brief Q&A for everybody.
Okay, well, you know what? The best thing is these are all the pieces that you're going to need. If you have any further questions, if you get in touch with whoever handles your medium in the show, you can always get in touch with me before the show, and I can help you with any particular questions that you might have walking into this as a first-time exhibitor. So I think that's probably the best way to cut to the chase.
Okay, great. So here are some just some basic information for everybody first before we go to Q&A. Thank you for participating. It's really a great first step to being prepared, and every little bit that you put into your first show makes that first show that much more successful. So kudos to you for participating. We have another one coming up that is specifically designed for new exhibitors. That is Monday, December 12th. From 2 to 3, same time frame, Eastern time. And it is on pre-show promotion. That's with Megan Alman, who many of you might know from crafting an MBA, or actually it's now called designing an MBA. She is also a jewelry exhibitor at Buyers Market, and that will be a not to be missed webinar. We have countdown emails that are sent every week in about 6 to 8 weeks leading up to the show. Very important. Please take the time to read that. Too many of our exhibitors are busy and they don't go through their email, but we send you stuff because we really want you to read it. There's useful things in there, ways to save money. So, we try to keep them short and sweet, but definitely try and read those. We're on Facebook and Twitter. If you're not a friend or a follower of those accounts, please do. We post tips from time to time and industry news, and also the Buyers Market of American Craft website has a exhibitor resources page that I just uploaded today, and I'll be updating it frequently between now and the show. When the exhibitor kit is up, you'll get that email directly to you around December 15th, but I'll also post those pages and access to that on the website as well. Okay, so let's have Bruce join us again, and then we will open it up to Q&A. Go ahead and start sending your questions in at the bottom of your control panel. Okay, great. Looks like we have some already. Oh, we have quite a few. Let me break that out so I can read it better. Alrighty. Okay. Karina is joining us, and she wants to know, she's a clothing designer and attending the show for the first time. She wants to know advice on setting up for lights. Are there many clothing booths? We do have a wearable fiber section specifically in the show, and there are about how many, Laura, how many wearable fiber people would you say we have? 25? 20? 40 to 50. Let's see. What should be in a press kit? Catherine wants to know what's in a press kit. That's a whole nother topic that we can do, and that'll be in pre-show promotion. But very quickly, a press kit would include a CD with high-resolution, professionally photographed images of your work. About 5 or 6 should be fine. A bio and a resume, and a press release. That's a little awkward trying to write a press release about yourself, but it takes a little practice. It's just 1 page. And you write about it in the third person with a quote, a little sound bite from yourself, so quote yourself. Those are the basics. Sometimes there's a sample if you make something small, but it should be clearly branded in a nice professional little folder. And you want to bring maybe 10 of those to the show, and they can be laid at the outside the press room, which is located by the show office, and any members of the press check into the show there, and we'll browse that table. And then what do you include in a line sheet? I'm going to pass that over to I'm going to pass that over to Stacy.
Hi. A line sheet would be a listing of your wholesale products, line by line, and price points, and if they have measurements. So I'm a mixed media artist. So for example, I have a box. So it'd be box item number B1. Name of box, angel with wings, size of box, 4 by 6 by 2, and then the price point and a place for extension of price point. So if they wanted to buy 1 or 2 or however many, but that would be a line sheet, and that's for one line for every item in your product line, and by all means categorize your product line. So if you want to categorize it under colors, styles, particular groupings.
Right, and it doesn't have to be very sophisticated or anything. A lot of people just make a rudimentary line sheet in Excel, and it's just what Stacy said. It's a itemized list of your products. You can organize them by theme or color or collection, and it just has a brief description of what it is. Some people will have a silhouette or a black and white drawing, but it's not the same as your catalog. A line sheet is a quick reference for what your pricing is, and that's going to change from year to year with the economy or with materials prices changing. So you want to make sure, and also as you add new products, very important, our most successful artists say that you should be bringing approximately 30% new work every show, every year. So you're going to update that, and you can produce a nice catalog and then not have to go through making that new every year, because you just slip a current line sheet, which is just a black and white copy. And again, it should have your consistent branding. So your logo goes at the top, your contact information, and then all of your products. And then our last question is from Emily. Do most jewelers put their work under plexi or in cases? And do most people work alone or with assistants? Bruce, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I think it depends on the price point. I mean, essentially, when you're at a trade show like this, people are pretty well screened. So pilferage, I'm not saying it never happens, but it's really, really rare. And what you want is people to touch it freely. If you're in an upper price point, and I'm saying like over $150, $200, then those things really belong in cases. But if your basic wholesale price is $100 or less, I think they can be out on tables or up on the wall. I mean, out on tables that are elevated or up on the wall is just fine. And it's usually reasonable for your first show that you could do it by yourself. But if you go to that show and find that there's ever anybody waiting, the next show you do, you need some help. And it really adds seriously to the expense if you take somebody along with you for the room, the meals, everything involved in and paying them. So I would definitely try the first show solo, but if you find that there's ever a few times during that show where you've got customers waiting, what you have to do is acknowledge them, saying to the customer waiting on, excuse me, I'll be with you in just a second, to the other people, I'll be with you as soon as I can, or here is an order form that you can start filling out or whatever, so that you are really paying attention. If you find there's frequently people waiting, that means the next show you do, you need help.
Great. And also just to point out that, if you have a friend, or even if you want to hire an art student nearby, there's lots of art schools in Philadelphia, some people who might need the extra help during setup, that's fine. You can also hire labor professionally through the decorator if you need that level of assistance. But yeah, a lot of our exhibitors are exhibiting by themselves, and we're the biggest show of our kind, but we're small enough that everybody pretty much knows each other. We're a pretty close-knit group, so you'll quickly learn to make friends with your booth neighbors, and they'll help you out. If you need to run get coffee or go to the restroom, you know, that they'll watch your booth for a sec, and as long as you return the favor. So when you first get to the show, introduce yourself to a couple people in your aisle, and you'll find that just about anybody you meet at the show is very welcoming and forthcoming about tips and what you would need on your first time around. So I'm going to close it up for now, and thank you everyone for participating. And again, don't forget your next webinar is pre-show promotion on December 12th. We'll send you an invite for that in the next couple days, so check your email. Thanks again, and have a good day.